On a cold and rainy night, a young alien girl walked alone through the empty streets. Her stomach was empty. Her heart was heavy. She had nothing left, no family, no home, no hope. For days, she had begged for food, but every door was slammed in her face. To everyone, she was just another unwanted stranger. Tonight, she whispered to herself, "Maybe it's better if I give up." But then something stopped her. A smell, a warm, rich smell of food floating in the air. Her tired legs followed it until she stood in front of a small restaurant, glowing softly in the dark. Inside, a human chef was cooking. She froze. Should she go in? Or would he push her away like all the others? She didn't know it yet. But the moment she stepped through that door, her fate would change forever. The city was quiet that night. A soft rain fell from the sky, covering the streets in silver light. Among the shadows, a young alien girl walked slowly, her steps heavy and weak. Her clothes were torn, her face pale, and her eyes empty. For days she had searched for food, but no one gave her even a single piece of bread. People passed her without looking. Some even turned away as if she did not exist. She whispered to herself as she walked, her voice low and broken, "Maybe this is the end. Maybe I should stop trying." She had nothing left, no family, no home, no reason to believe tomorrow would be different from today. The cold air made her shiver, but her empty stomach hurt even more. She placed her hand on her chest, feeling the slow beat of her heart, wondering how long it would last. But then, something stopped her. A smell, a warm, rich smell that made her eyes widen. Her body almost moved on its own, following the soft trail of air. It was food. She knew it at once. Her feet carried her through narrow streets until she saw it. A small restaurant glowing softly with yellow light. Through the window she saw a man, a human, moving around a kitchen. He was cooking. Her heart raced. The smell of fresh bread, warm soup, and roasted meat filled her nose. She pressed her hand against the glass, staring at the food as if it were treasure. Her stomach growled so loud that she quickly pulled her hand back. Afraid someone might hear, she looked at the door. Should she enter, or would he chase her away like the others did? Memories filled her mind, people shouting at her, doors closing, faces turning cold. She felt her legs shake. She wanted to walk away before the pain of rejection came again. But the rain grew heavier, and the warmth of the restaurant called to her. She stood still, unable to decide. That was when the door opened, and the human chef stepped outside. He held a towel in one hand, wiping his fingers. He looked at her with calm eyes, not with fear or anger. For a moment, the alien girl froze, waiting for harsh words, but none came. Instead, he spoke gently. "Are you hungry?" Her eyes widened. She wanted to answer, but her throat was dry, and no words came out. She only nodded slowly, her hands trembling at her sides. The chef did not ask anything more. He stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come in. It's warm inside." She hesitated. Her feet felt stuck to the ground. Could she really trust him? What if he changed his mind once she stepped inside? What if this kindness was only for a moment? But the smell of the food was stronger now, and the warmth of the light reached her skin. Slowly, carefully, she walked forward and entered the restaurant. Inside, the air was soft and warm. The sound of the rain outside grew distant, replaced by the quiet crackle of food cooking on the stove. The human chef guided her to a small table in the corner. She sat down, her body stiff, ready to run if anything happened, but nothing did. The chef returned with a bowl of soup and a piece of bread. He placed it in front of her without saying a word. Steam rose from the bowl, carrying the smell of herbs and fresh vegetables. She looked at it with wide eyes, almost afraid to touch it. He smiled lightly. "It's for you. Eat." Her hands shook as she reached for the spoon. Slowly, she took the first sip. The warmth spread through her body, filling her empty stomach. Tears welled in her eyes as she ate. She tried to stop them, but they rolled down her cheeks anyway. She had not tasted real food in so long. Every bite felt like a miracle. The chef sat across from her, watching quietly. He did not ask questions. He did not judge. He only let her eat in peace. She finished the soup quickly, almost too quickly. and then stared at the empty bowl with disbelief. "Would you like more?" the chef asked softly. She looked at him, her lips parting, but no words came out. She only nodded again, and he smiled. Standing up to bring another bowl, she placed her hand over her chest again, feeling her heart beat faster. It was not from fear this time. It was from something else, something she had not felt in a long time, that hope. As she finished the second bowl, she looked at the human chef carefully. Why was he helping her? No one else had ever done this. People always turned away. Yet he offered her food without asking for anything. She wanted to speak, to ask him why, but her voice was still weak. The chef noticed. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "You don't need to say anything. Just know you're safe here." Safe, the word echoed in her mind. Could it be true? For the first time in many nights, she felt her body relax, her shoulders no longer heavy with fear. She sat quietly, staring at the man, wondering who he really was and why he cared. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside the restaurant, the alien girl felt something she thought she had lost forever. A chance to live, a chance to believe, and though she did not know it yet, the small act of kindness would change her fate forever. The rain outside slowed, and the soft glow of the restaurant filled the room like a quiet comfort. The alien girl sat at the corner table, her hands resting lightly on the empty bowl in front of her. Her body felt warmer now, her stomach no longer crying in pain, but her mind was restless. She had questions, doubts, and fears she could not speak aloud. She lifted her eyes and saw the human chef return from the kitchen. He carried a plate this time, with bread that looked fresh from the oven, its crust golden and soft, steam curled upward, carrying a smell so rich and gentle it almost felt like a dream. He placed the plate on the table, then set down a small glass of water beside it. "You should eat slowly," he said in a calm tone. "You've gone hungry for too long." Her eyes dropped to the bread, but her fingers did not move. Something inside her was still waiting for the moment when he would ask for something in return. Or worse, when he would push her out into the cold. That was how kindness always worked in her experience, short, sharp, and fleeting. Yet this man stood there without impatience, simply waiting for her to take what he had offered. She picked up the bread, tearing it gently. The smell filled her chest, and when she placed the first bite on her tongue, warmth spread through her body again. She chewed slowly this time, tasting each bite as if it were the most precious thing she had ever held. Her eyes grew wet, but she lowered her head so he would not see. "You're safe here," the chef said once more. As though reading her thoughts, the words settled inside her, but she didn't know how to answer. Safe was not a word she had believed in for a long time. Safe was something that belonged to other people, not her. She had lived too long in shadows, where doors closed and hands pushed her away. The chef did not ask for her story. He did not ask where she came from or why she was alone. Instead, he walked back to the kitchen, his footsteps light, as though he did not want to disturb her. She heard the soft clatter of pans and the sound of water running. She realized he was preparing more food, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. She watched him through the small doorway. His movements were steady, almost like a rhythm. He chopped vegetables, stirred a pot, and checked the fire with care. It was simple work, but there was something beautiful in it, something she had never seen before. Cooking, for him, was not just about food. It was about giving warmth, about bringing life into an empty night. When he returned, he carried a new dish, a plate of roasted vegetables shining with soft oil. He set it down before her, and then took a seat across the table. This time, he did not leave her to eat alone. "Food tastes better when someone shares it," he said with a faint smile. The alien girl looked at him carefully, her hands still on the bread. She wanted to ask why he was doing this. She wanted to know if this was real. But her voice was too small, too fragile, and the words stayed locked inside her chest. The chef began eating from his own plate, slow and calm. He did not look at her too closely, but his presence gave her a strange sense of calmness. It was as if he understood without needing words. She followed his lead, lifting a piece of roasted carrot with her fingers. The sweetness touched her tongue, and for a moment, She closed her eyes when she opened them. The chef was watching her, but not in the way others had. There was no judgment in his eyes, no sharpness, only quiet kindness, the kind that made her feel both safe and confused at the same time. Her lips parted, and this time a small sound escaped. "Why?" It was one word, whispered so softly she almost thought he would not hear. The chef placed his fork down and looked at her. His expression did not change, but his eyes softened. "Because I know what it feels like," he said simply. She tilted her head, unsure what he meant. "I was hungry once too," he continued. "Long ago, before I had this place. I know how heavy it feels when no one looks at you, when no one cares, and I promised myself, if I ever found someone who needed help, I would never turn them away." The girl's eyes widened. For the first time, she felt a piece of his heart open to her. He was not helping her because of pity, but because he remembered what it felt like to stand where she stood. Her hands tightened on the bread, her voice trembling. "No one ever helped me before." The chef leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Then let this be the first time. Everyone deserves one moment of kindness. Sometimes that one moment can change everything." Her throat tightened, and she looked down quickly, afraid he might see the tears forming again. But he said nothing more, giving her space to breathe, to eat, to feel. As the rain outside faded into a soft drizzle, the alien girl sat in silence, her body finally warm, her stomach finally full. Yet it was not the food that shook her the most, it was the way he spoke, the way he saw her as a person, not a stranger to be feared or ignored. For the first time in her wandering life, she wondered if this human might be different. She wondered if this quiet restaurant, hidden away in the rainy night, could be the place where her story began again. And though she could not say it out loud, deep inside her, a fragile spark of hope began to glow. The night passed slowly, and when the morning sun rose, a soft golden light touched the windows of the little restaurant. The alien girl had fallen asleep in the corner, her head resting on the table after the warmth of the meal. For the first time in many nights, her sleep was peaceful, free from the sharp fear that always followed her in the dark streets. The human chef found her still sitting there. When he entered the dining room at dawn, he did not wake her. Instead, he set down a cup of tea on the table, letting the gentle smell rise around her. When the girl finally opened her eyes, she blinked against the light, almost startled to see she was still safe inside. "You stayed," the chef said softly, placing another cup down for himself. She looked away, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to. I thought you would ask me to leave." He shook his head. No one should be sent back out into the rain after a meal. He took a sip of his tea, his voice calm and steady. "Besides, this place has been too quiet for too long. It's nice to have company." The girl lowered her eyes, unsure of how to respond. She felt both gratitude and unease, as if kindness was something too fragile to hold. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup, breathing in the steam. For a moment, the silence felt almost comfortable. The chef watched her carefully, as if weighing a thought in his mind. Finally, he set his cup down and leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to keep wandering," he said. "If you want, you can stay here. Help me around the restaurant. There's always work to do." Her eyes widened, her fingers tightening on the cup. "Stay, you mean work here?" He nodded. "Yes, it's not much, but it's honest. You'll have food, a roof, and a place where you're welcome." The girl's heart raced. She had expected only a meal, a brief moment of kindness before being pushed back into the cold. But now, this man was offering something she had never been given before: trust. She shook her head slowly. I don't know anything. I've never worked in a place like this. I might break things. I might make mistakes." The chef smiled lightly. "Everyone starts by making mistakes. I'll teach you. What matters is that you try." The words settled over her like sunlight. For so long, she had been seen as a burden, a problem to push away. Yet here was someone saying she could belong, even if she failed. Her throat tightened, and she could not speak for a moment. The chef rose and walked toward the kitchen, motioning for her to follow. She stood slowly, still uncertain, but curiosity pulled her forward. Inside, The kitchen was bright and filled with the smell of fresh herbs. Pots hung from hooks, knives gleamed on the counter, and baskets of vegetables waited to be prepared. He handed her a cloth and pointed at the tables. "Let's start simple. Wipe these down." She held the cloth awkwardly in her hands, unsure if she was doing it right, but she tried. Step by step, she moved across the tables, wiping carefully, her movements slow but steady. The chef said nothing as he worked beside her, chopping vegetables with smooth skill. When she finished, she looked at him nervously, waiting for correction. "Good," he said simply, glancing at the clean tables. "Tomorrow you'll be faster. That's how learning works." Something inside her loosened. A small, uncertain smile touched her lips. It felt strange, almost foreign, but it was real. As the morning passed, she continued helping in small ways, carrying bowls, sweeping the floor, and washing dishes. Each time she thought she had failed, the chef only guided her gently, showing her how to do it better next time. Slowly, the fear of being thrown out began to fade. When the first customers arrived, the girl stood nervously in the corner, hiding her face. The humans who entered noticed her at once, their voices low with surprise. Some stared, whispering to each other about the alien girl standing inside a human restaurant. Her hands shook, and she wanted to run back into the kitchen. But the chef placed a hand on her shoulder and spoke calmly. "You belong here. Let them see that." She took a deep breath, trying to stand still. The whispers continued, but no one shouted, no one pushed her away. The chef served the customers as usual, his calm presence shielding her from the heavy stares. By the end of the day, she was tired, but it was a different kind of tired. Her body ached from work, not from hunger or wandering. For the first time, exhaustion carried a small sense of pride. As the sun set, she sat quietly at a table while the chef cleaned the kitchen. She watched him, still wondering why he trusted her so easily. She wanted to ask, but the words caught in her throat again. The chef noticed her silence and finally spoke. "You're stronger than you think. Stay long enough, and you'll see it too." The girl lowered her head, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. His words touched something deep inside her, something she thought she had lost forever. Maybe, just maybe, her life could change here. Yet even as warmth settled around her, a quiet unease remained. She knew the world outside had not forgotten her, and though she could not yet see it, shadows of her past were already moving closer, waiting for the right moment to appear. The days slowly turned into weeks, and the small restaurant began to feel different with the alien girl inside. She moved quietly between the tables, carrying bowls, wiping surfaces, and sometimes even bringing plates to the customers. At first, her steps were shaky, her hands uncertain, but the human chef's patience never faded. Each mistake was met with a calm word, each success with a small nod of approval, and little by little, she began to believe she could belong there. But not everyone shared that belief. Outside the doors, whispers had begun to spread. People passing by saw her through the windows, her strange eyes and delicate hands working among humans. Some shook their heads, others spoke in low voices, saying it was unnatural, or that the chef was foolish to trust someone like her. The restaurant, once overlooked by many, was now a subject of curiosity. One evening, as the lanterns outside glowed softly and the rain tapped against the roof, the girl stepped out to bring in a basket of fresh herbs. The night air was cool, and she breathed deeply, enjoying the quiet. But the quiet did not last. A pair of voices drifted from the shadows nearby. "There she is," one whispered. "The alien girl, working in a human's place." She froze, clutching the basket tightly to her chest. The voices grew closer. "Strange, isn't it? A creature like that serving food. People say it brings bad luck." Her heart raced, and she lowered her head, hoping they would pass by. But the words clung to her ears like cold rain. She hurried back inside, her breath unsteady. The chef noticed at once. He set down the pan he was holding and looked at her carefully. "What happened?" She shook her head quickly. "Nothing, just voices." He did not push her to explain. Instead, he placed a hand on the counter and spoke firmly. "Let them talk. This is your place to now. Their words cannot change that." His kindness settled her heart for a moment, but the unease lingered. She remembered the many times she had been turned away before, the way doors had shut in her face. Could it happen again? Would his kindness fade if the voices outside grew louder? The next day, the restaurant was busier than usual. Curious eyes filled the tables, and whispers followed her wherever she went. She felt them on her back, like a heavy weight she could not escape. A woman at one table leaned toward her friend and murmured, "Can you believe he lets her touch the food?" Another shook his head, saying, "It's only a matter of time before trouble finds this place." Her hands trembled as she set down the plates. She wanted to hide in the kitchen, but the chef's steady presence at the stove reminded her she was not alone. He caught her glance and gave a small nod, as if to say, "You're stronger than this." That night, after the last customer left, she sat quietly at a corner table, her shoulders heavy. The chef poured 2 cups of tea and placed one in front of her. He sat across from her, his voice gentle. "You heard them, didn't you?" he asked. She looked down, tracing the rim of the cup with her finger. "They don't want me here. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong." The chef leaned back, his eyes calm but steady. "Listen to me. People always fear what they don't understand. But fear is not truth. You've worked hard. You've given your best, and this place is better because of you. That is what matters." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but the doubt still lingered. Yet when she looked at his face, she saw no hesitation, no shadow of regret in his eyes, only certainty. The days went on, and though the whispers continued, so did her work. The chef stood beside her through it all, his quiet strength shielding her from the storm of doubt. But even as she found small moments of peace, she could not shake the feeling that something larger was coming. One evening, as the sun slipped below the horizon, the door creaked open and a group of strangers stepped inside. Their eyes went straight to her, studying her with interest that felt heavier than all the whispers before. She kept her head down, her hands moving nervously as she cleared a nearby table. The chef noticed, his expression calm but watchful. The strangers ordered food, but their eyes never left her. She felt it with every step, every movement, as though the shadows of her past had finally found the door she thought was hidden. That night, long after the strangers left, she stood by the window, staring out at the quiet street. The air felt heavy, the silence too deep. Something was stirring beyond the safety of the little restaurant, and though she did not know what shape it would take, she knew it would test the fragile peace she had found. The chef joined her at the window, his voice steady in the stillness. "Whatever comes, remember you're not alone anymore." Her eyes lifted to him, and in that moment, she believed him. Yet deep inside, she also felt a tremor of fear. The whispers had become stares. The stares had become watchful silence. And soon, silence might become something else entirely. The days inside the little cafe began to feel different. People who once came just for food started returning again and again, curious about the quiet alien girl who now stood beside the human chef. She was no longer the pale, weak stranger who had once been ready to give up. She now carried trays of food with careful steps, cleaned tables with patience, and sometimes even smiled when the chef made a small joke. But deep inside, she still carried fear. Every time the door opened, her eyes moved quickly to the new face. Was it someone from her past? Was it someone who would recognize her? The chef noticed this, but he never asked. Instead, he spoke about small things, about how the bread rose perfectly that morning, or how a child left a thank you note on the counter. He gave her stories of simple kindness, stories that made the cafe feel like a safe island in a large, unknown sea. One evening, while the sun dipped low and golden, light filled the cafe windows, she asked softly, "Why do you do this for me? You don't know me, you don't even know my name." Her voice trembled, carrying both gratitude and doubt. The chef paused before answering. "Maybe I don't need to know your name to see you're worth saving. Sometimes, people don't need reasons. Sometimes, kindness is the reason." His words stayed with her, echoing long after the cafe closed for the night. She lay awake, replaying every moment, the warm meals, the gentle smile, the way he never treated her like she was different. Something inside her began to grow, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, the next morning. She surprised him. When a customer asked for a special dish from the menu, she stepped forward. I want to try cooking it," she said nervously. The chef looked at her for a moment, then simply handed her the spoon. Her hands shook, but he stood beside her, guiding her without taking control. For the first time, she felt like she could create instead of only survive. The smell of her dish filled the cafe, and when the customer smiled and said, "It's perfect," her chest tightened with something she hadn't known she could feel. Again, pride that the cafe slowly became more than just a place for her to hide. It became a stage where she discovered pieces of herself she thought were lost forever. Yet, in the back of her mind, she knew this peace could not last forever. Someone, somewhere, might be searching for her, and if they found her, everything could change in an instant. But for now, as laughter and warm meals filled the air, she let herself believe in the simple truth the chef had shown her. Even the smallest act of kindness could save a life. The next morning, the little restaurant felt warmer than usual, not because of the ovens or the stoves, but because of the strange peace that had settled inside it. The alien girl sat at her usual place near the window, her silver eyes softer now, no longer filled with the same shadow of fear they once carried. She held a cup between her hands, letting the steam brush against her face. As if even the smallest warmth was precious to her. The chef moved quietly round the kitchen, pretending to be busy, but his eyes often wandered toward her. Something inside him told him that her story wasn't over yet. He had seen people eat, rest, and leave, but this girl stayed. She was not looking for food alone. She was looking for something more, something she didn't even know how to ask for. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. "Do humans always give this much?" The chef put down the knife he was holding and smiled faintly. "Not always, but sometimes a little kindness can change everything." Her eyes lingered on him, full of quiet questions. "Change everything?" He nodded. "Yes, one meal, one word, one hand offered at the right time. It can save a life." She lowered her gaze, and her hands trembled slightly around the cup. "You saved mine." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of her hidden pain, a pain she had carried for too long. Outside, the world passed by, unaware of the quiet bond forming inside the little place. Travelers walked, airships hummed in the sky, but for the two of them, time slowed. She began to help in small ways, passing him ingredients, wiping a table, learning how to slice fruit carefully. She laughed once when she dropped the plate, and he noticed that it was the first time she had laughed since stepping into his world. But late at night, when the restaurant was closed and the streets grew silent, she would sit by the window and stare at the stars. Her expression grew distant again, as if she was listening to voices only she could hear. The chef sometimes stood in the doorway, watching quietly, never asking too much. He knew that whatever she had escaped from was still out there, reaching for her. And then it happened. One evening, as she helped him serve a dish, the bell over the door rang. A group of strangers entered. Their clothes were sharp, their movements careful, and their eyes didn't look around like normal customers. Their eyes locked only on her. The girl froze, her hands trembled, the color drained from her face, and the cup she was holding nearly slipped from her fingers. She whispered without realizing, "They found me." The chef's heart tightened. In that moment, he understood her past had caught up to her. The strangers moved closer, polite smiles masking something deeper. The chef could feel the tension filling the room, a quiet storm building. He glanced at the girl, then at the strangers, and a silent choice formed inside him. He had promised her safety, without words, without conditions, and now, he realized, that promise would be tested. But as the girl gripped the edge of the table, her voice quivering with fear, he stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. Her silver eyes widened, and in that fragile moment, something changed inside her. The kindness she had received was no longer just warmth, it became strength. The strangers exchanged looks, sensing that the girl was no longer as helpless as she once had been. Something unseen had shifted in her, and the chef stood beside her, not as a cook in a small restaurant, but as the one human who had given her more than food. He had given her hope. And Hope, once awakened, was not so easy to break.